So I said the next time that you guys would see us would probably be when we get to the beach, but we decided to do one last attempt at getting some decent photos on this trip, so we went down to the river today to get some photos of platypus, and we got very lucky. We had about an hour with the platypus, had the 400mm out, and I easily snapped about 900 shots. So I might have to put up a bit of a slideshow of the favorites for you guys, because it's already going to take a load of time just to go through those photos. But I would have logged a bit more of it, but we were really in the moment. The platypus were constantly moving up and down the river, and we were having to chase them down the whole way and chase them back up, climb through all the brush. But it was worth it. I think we got some fantastic photos, and we even took a bit of video of the platypus at 400mm. So I'll also include that in as a little montage of what our morning was like. But definitely a fantastic way to cap off our trip in Carnarvon Gorge.
That's probably fine.
Julian just kicked me.
Yeah,
Because I did ruin one of his shots, so he says, but he also didn't wake me up the other day when we were shooting platypus the first time. He thought I'd rather sleep in instead of get some photos of an endangered animal. But, you know, at least my photos were better than his, so I'm not too worried.
you're weak.
are on day 7 of our trip. We've been spending about 2 days around Airlie Beach sort of area, and we thought it would be a nice change for the photography, maybe get some good beach photos, but it's been a bit of a bust so far. Yesterday morning was alright, got a decent composition, you've probably already seen that one, but ever since then it's been honestly pretty crappy for photography. Our next campsite that we had where we stayed tonight, was expecting it to be, somewhat alright, but it's mosquito infested. It's a beach, but it's a beach covered in stones, and there are no spots to actually put down a tent, which means you either find a small patch of sand or you put your tent right down on a bunch of pebbles, which is extremely uncomfortable. Just as a little insult to injury, there's pretty much nothing for compositions here. I mean, I'm walking down the beach right now. Sunrise is about half an hour ago. We weren't even motivated to get out of our tent to take photos of the actual sunrise. But we're hoping that it turns around at the end of the day today, because then we're going to be going down to Cape Hillsborough, staying at a much nicer beach which actually has sand, and is also famous for having kangaroos on it in the morning. So I think that'll be a nice way to cap off the trip, because tomorrow is our last day. And then after we take the photos of those kangaroos, hopefully they're there, hopefully it's better than this, we will be in for a 12-hour drive back to Brisbane, which I don't think me or Julian are looking forward to, but we've seen it coming for the last few days, and I think we resigned to the fact that it's going to suck, but we have to do it. I'll try and find some compositions this morning, but don't expect very much, especially with all these mosquitoes. It's covered in mosquito bites last night. Not good at all. But I'll throw in whatever we get, and hopefully there's something nice. So it's been quite an eventful day since I last did a piece to camera. I seemed a little bit down when I was talking about going to shoot photos for sunrise. It's because yesterday I decided to spur of the moment, I'd book a flight tour over the Great Barrier Reef and try and snap some photos of my 100 to 400. But about an hour after booking that, I got a call from the company, and they said, look, no one else has booked that flight time, so we'll have to cancel it on you unless anyone else books in. It seemed like it wasn't going to happen, which made yesterday a little bit depressing. But luckily this morning, 9 a.m., they call me, and 2 other people had booked in a flight for that trip. I was good to go, and yeah, within about 40 minutes from then, we were on the plane taking off. I was just going crazy with the shutter. I mean, I think I shot 800 photos in about an hour. I was riding that buffer on the camera, hitting it over and over again. I had to switch cards to do the flight. It was a bit challenging trying to shoot out the window of a plane with all the movement going on, so I had to bump my shutter speed up to around a 2,000th of a second, even up to an 8,000th of a second, which brought my ISO all the way up to 1600. So photos are going to be a little bit noisy, a little bit shaky, and maybe a little bit out of focus. The camera was having some trouble with its autofocus, so I was having to point it at the landforms around the reef and then focus on those, turn off autofocus, and then shoot photos of the reef with that same focus setting. So I'll be putting up quite a few of those photos for you to see, and some clips that I took on the flight. It was a bit difficult trying to film and take photos at the same time, but I tried to find some balance between that, because when we got to that reef, oh man, I think we were at the reef for about 15 minutes, and I pressed to the camera the entire time, holding down that shutter button, trying to find compositions. But it was a great experience, so today's a little bit better than it was yesterday. It's a little bit better than this morning. Apparently we're going to be going for some hikes this afternoon, although I don't know. Julian seems a little bit relaxed. I don't think he's going to be getting up anytime soon, so we might even just end up shooting sunset here. But we'll see whether he falls asleep or not. Make our decision based on that. And tomorrow we're going to be at this spot right by our campsite, and we're going to be shooting sunrise with kangaroos all across the water. So from what the tourist guide says, all along this area of low tide, every sunrise, it's filled with kangaroos eating seeds? Eating seaweed and seeds. It's about I'd say a 20-meter walk down to the beach. And we'll just shoot some photos of the kangaroos. Hopefully that they're there, hopefully. But even if they aren't, it'll be a nice experience just walking out to the beach. Finally one that actually has sand, because that sucked not having sand on the last beach we were at. Yeah, After that, we'll be straight in the car for our 12-hour drive back to Brisbane and the end of the trip. So let's hope we have a good end of the trip. Alrighty, back here again for sunset, and just as I predicted, Julian did not want to go for a hike. So, instead we drove down the road to a different beach, went for a bit of swim. I tried my hand at having a wrestle with Julian, because he's got a bit of wrestling experience. She'll be right, she'll be right. He's just flying my drone because he crashed his. But, shooting sunset here, so I've got a composition framed up. And this place could pretty easily be mistaken for something off the Oregon coast. We got a few sea stacks off in the distance, I'll show you. So we got a nice mountain range that sort of passes into the ocean, and there's a few sea stacks sitting out that way, which I think will be great for sunrise when we come back to this beach. And there's also a few islands off on this side, which could be of pretty cool interest. I might even actually take a photo of that one on the left right there, just because it has a few trees popping out and some really great light on it right now. But at the moment, what I've got framed up is actually these trees just along the cliffline right here. And what I've done is I've zoomed in with my 100 to 400, and I've just framed up a single tree that's being lit up in the light. So this is what I have framed up here, where I just have the tree placed on the right side of the frame, and then it's nice and surrounded by a black background with the golden light all around it. I think it's a pretty nice representation of the light we're having here, and I think the tree stands out among everything else in the scene. I'll go ahead and hit that shot, and then I'll actually start taking some photos of these islands because they're actually looking pretty nice too, and I think the light's quickly fading. Snap this photo now, 1:4 seconds, f10 ISO 100, and there we go. Alrighty, as I said, I moved on to photographing the island off in the distance, and I'm honestly not too impressed with the composition that I found. I think that is sort of just missing something and is trying to lead off to the right side in a way that doesn't really work very well. But I've tried to be a bit creative with the composition just because it is a nice subject, it's just not the exact shot I was hoping for. But you never know, maybe I'll enjoy it after a while. So I'll show you what I've got framed up here in my composition. So what I've done here is I've just tried to arrange it in the frame where it's taking up the bottom portion, and then I'm hoping that I get a bit of color in the sky as the sunset progresses, and I get a nice transition from blue to pink to yellow just over the top of it. I think that's probably the best thing to do with this composition. The only issue that I see in it at the moment, how it just seems as if the island is sort of trailing off to the right side. I don't think that works too well with the way that I've composed this, but really it is the best I can do with this landscape that I'm in. If I wanted to move it a bit further to the right, then I'd also be including a portion of the larger island beside it, which I don't think would help for the image that I'm going for. I think this might be probably the only other shot I'll be able to get tonight. Might just have to rely on what comes tomorrow with the kangaroos and the beautiful sunrise. I'll throw up whatever I get here. Hopefully it's something decent. I'm shooting this one at 1:8 seconds, f11 ISO 100. And I'll show you what I got. Here we are on our final morning. Just finished shooting the kangaroos and it was just funny to watch. There was a lot less kangaroos than we expected, and it was a lot more touristy than we expected. The way that it happened is the kangaroos came out on the beach followed by a parks ranger, and they put out some food in buckets and put some cones around where you weren't allowed to go towards the kangaroos, and everyone just crowded around the sides of that. So me and Julian with our 100 to 400s on our tripods were pretty much able to get no shots. So any photos that you see from these kangaroos, the only way that we managed to take them was by sort of edging our lenses in between where people were standing to get glimpses of kangaroos inside. But I think I got some nice ones. I do know that Julian probably has a pretty sour face right now. He's still over there trying to get photos of the last straggler kangaroos before they go off into the bush. But I'm sure he got a better shot than me. He's been putting a lot more effort into actually shooting the kangaroos. But I sort of gave up on doing that a few minutes ago, and I decided I'd just start shooting the landscape because it was a beautiful sunrise and the rocks turned such a nice color off by a sea stack behind me. So I framed that up and took that shot, and I'll throw that one up as well in the sort of slideshow of photos I got from today. And yeah, let me know what you think. But this is probably the end of the photography for the trip, so yeah, I guess the next part is to go to the studio and start printing off some of these photos and see how they look.